Hello and welcome to Well Played. I'm your host Bluetongue. From around Australia, I'm joined by our host from Canberra. We have only Crystal. How are you, Crystal?
I'm doing okay. And I'll be honest, I'm not in Canberra right now. So that's why it's not around Sydney, Australia. What have I been up to? I've been busy with work. Really busy with work. What have you been up to, Blue?
I've been working, but I've been making time for games. So I've been playing yet more of The Division. They got patched this week, which was exciting. So
Cool.
they've changed up kind of how the game functions, generally speaking. That's been fun and time consuming. I've also been finished Daredevil season 2, and that was really
Okay.
cool. Have you seen Daredevil at all?
Look, I think I got 5 episodes in, and it's just too dark for me, I think. I really want to revisit it, but I really need to be in that headspace to engage with something quite so dark.
Oh, right. You probably won't enjoy Jessica Jones then.
Oh no, I loved Jessica Jones. Loved it.
And it's less dark than Daredevil.
I think it's because Daredevil exposes a lot more of the violence in a very abrasive manner. Like, I don't really want to spoil it, but there's a scene, I think, in about
I've seen
episode...
all
Yeah.
episodes, yeah.
Well, not just for
okay.
you, but
Sorry.
perhaps our audience don't want to spoil it. Although it has been out for a while, so...
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a particular scene where, it's very brutal.
Is this the car door scene?
Yeah,
Okay.
all right, fine, you spoiled it. There's a car door scene, and there's no escaping it, and I pretty much haven't watched since I saw that episode. So
Yeah. See, the irony of that scene is it's all implied violence, and you can't actually see anything. If you could actually physically see it happening, yeah, fair enough, totally get it. But it's just implied violence, and a lot of people have taken it to it really poorly. Like, yeah.
well, it's just written and exposed on screen really well.
Yeah.
Because they've really truly conveyed the darkness and the depth of that scene. Because a lot of people have reacted in much the same way as I have. So yay to the producer and the director.
Yeah. So does that mean that you're not a fan of Game of Thrones, or?
Oh, that's another one. I've kind of got halfway through the first season. And to be honest, it wasn't just me who found that one a bit much. There's a lot more rapiness to Game of Thrones than there is to, I'm hoping, Daredevil. I'm hoping it doesn't go down that path.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, and I want to engage with Game of Thrones, but it's just now it's pretty much finding the time. I think I'd more likely do Game of Thrones before I revisit Daredevil again. Okay. So
yeah. I've been watching the trailers for those things this week as well. So there's another Game of Thrones trailer for the new season that comes out at the end of April, and there is there was another trailer for Suicide Squad this week.
There was. I haven't watched it, but I saw some fanfare, and The Office had a little bit of I wouldn't say a meltdown, but an excited, ooh, there's another trailer, and suddenly Office doors are closed.
Yeah. I saw it, and I'm just like, this is awesome, and I really continue to be excited about it. But that's actually something that we're going to be covering in the future is spoilers and disappointments.
Yes.
That'll be a really fun topic.
It will indeed.
However, this week we are doing something different. So
we are. So this week we're going to talk about International Tabletop Day. International Tabletop Day is an initiative started by, I believe, Geek and Sundry, and is run by Will Wheaton himself. It wasn't him to begin with, but he is certainly the kind of figurehead behind the initiative. Basically encouraging everyone to go to their local game store and play games. The reason I say this time that it's a proponent to getting people to go to the local game store is because this year only local game stores who have an actual business can be part of the promotional initiative that Geek and Sundry run. So basically your local game store signs up to International Tabletop Day, and then they get a promotional kit, which often include promotional pieces for games like extra cards that do some crazy things, some posters, and some media kit sort of stuff.
Cool. I did not know about this, ironically, and I've been a board gamer for, more than a decade now.
I guess you don't listen to Will Wheaton. I don't know.
No, I watch tabletop, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a Will Wheaton fan, I guess. I was trying to decide whether or not he actually is worthy of the classification of Lord of the Nerds, or if that should go to someone like J.R. Tolkien or something like that.
But I think J.R. Tolkien is Lord of the Nerds in books.
Yeah.
Whereas Will Wheaton kind of spans across a lot of pop culture.
That is very true. He's definitely the modern Lord of the Nerds.
Yeah. Definitely. So International Tabletop Day this year is April 30th. So if you haven't planned what you're doing for April 30th, I recommend strongly that you contact your local game store to see what they are offering.
Yeah. Do you know specifically what games that they have promotional stuff for?
So I'm not exactly sure what this year's will be. I don't think they've announced that yet. They generally leave the announcement till a couple of days before. But in 2015, they had promos for like Flux and I want to say Seven Wonders.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I wish I'd been last year. Oh.
Sad face.
Yes. All right. So, in essence, we could look at this as basically encouraging people to get out and get involved in the local board gaming scene. Would that be roughly correct?
Yeah, pretty much. Focusing one day so that, a kind of overarching media body like Geek and Sundry can assist in the marketing and creation of a machine that would help board gaming and gaming in general.
Yeah, and focus their efforts rather than, spreading it out over multiple days and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So, Crystal, what was the very first games that you started playing, and how did you start really enjoying and getting into the board gaming scene?
Well, I remember as a kid, like, that kind of Monopoly tension. I remember plenty of nights where playing as a family, my mum and my sister, for a number of hours invested in Monopoly, and despite at the time I think my mum was a real estate agent, could not ever win at Monopoly, which was kind of hilarious. But like other than mass market games being part of my childhood, my introduction into designer games wasn't till I picked up a copy of Munchkin while I happened to be overseas.
Yep.
One of my geeky friends had been talking about it before I went over there, and I saw it, and I had some US currency to burn before I came home, so I bought myself a copy of Munchkin, and we played it with a group of friends, and we're like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool, and end up going in to check out more board games, because I think at the time I was into Magic as well.
Yep.
So board games in the game store weren't a hugely unfamiliar concept, but it certainly wasn't something I explored in depth, and then kind of kicked off from there. So that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize it was that recent.
Yeah, it was kind of like a jump in head first introduction to the hobby, in which my collection obsession kind of took over.
Yeah, okay.
How about you, Blue? How'd you get into board games?
Well, like you, I started with the mass-produced stuff. I used to always play ridiculously long games of Monopoly with my cousin when she was over, and my brother. So there was like just the three of us playing Monopoly for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I got into Warhammer and that sort of stuff. But
I forgot about Warhammer.
Yeah.
I had that as a kid too.
Yeah, I used to love sitting down and reading all the codexes and planning out armies and stuff like that, and reading up on all the lore.
Yeah.
But I was a terrible painter, so that didn't really take off for me.
I was the opposite. I loved the painting. Screw the books.
Yeah. So this is the difference between like creative versus, I don't know, analytical.
Yeah, yeah.
And I then got introduced to Settlers of Catan when I was down at the board game store, like with the same group of guys who played Warhammer and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I started playing Catan in like the late 90s, and from there went to Ticket to Ride with another friend of mine who also was getting into board games at the time. And yeah, from there, I basically then started pursuing it in earnest with Bauxite, and we started playing a lot more, other interesting games, and I kept on picking up more and more stuff from the board game store, and made a few spur of the moment purchases I regret now, but stuff like Dominion we got into.
Yes.
Discworld was another great game that I'm still a really big fan of. Small World was another one that came up, and
Yeah.
and a few others that have fallen by the wayside, like Cargo Noir and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my introduction to board games, and I can, like, in retrospect, I think that was a relatively standard path to take. I think Ticket to Ride and Settlers seem to be like really good introductory games to people who haven't really experienced board games before.
Yeah, definitely. I recently taught Ticket to Ride to my cousins who are 8 and 12, and they love it. They always ask me, "Hey, Crystal, did you bring the train game with you this time?" So
Yeah.
it's a good introduction to the hobby.
Yeah, I find myself interestingly talking about board games a lot with people at work,
Yeah.
and usually it's parents as well. They seem to be the most interested in it because all the kids are interested in playing games, and then that gives them something to do together as a family.
Yeah.
And so, like, to the point where several of the guys that I work with have then started implementing, phone-free, like, Thursdays. And the family sits down and plays games like Love Letter and stuff like that, which I've introduced them to, that they love to bits because it's so straightforward and fun and interactive and
Wow.
that sort of thing. So, yeah, I like to think of board games as more than just, your standard closeted nerd activity that is only enjoyed by you and a very select group of friends. It's something that's a lot more social than that. And
Definitely.
I like to think of it as a really great way for people to, I don't know, get together without any screens and TVs and computers involved.
Yeah. A lot of today's interactivity has come as a digital form rather than let's talk and interact with each other in some sort of co-location sense.
Yeah.
And I don't have kids, I don't really have a family, and I guess that's pretty hard with teenagers, especially these days, because they want to be online and talking with their friends rather than, committing to social activities with the family unit.
Yeah, exactly. I think it would obviously get more difficult as the kids get older. It just depends how much they've taken to the whole board gaming scene as to whether or not they'd be still interested in doing stuff with the family group.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's something I really like to recommend to people as something that you can do that isn't just, I don't know, watching TV and movies.
Definitely more interactive than just sitting watching a TV screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the spirit of International Tabletop Day, we're going to be hitting you with some of our favourite, more recent board games that we've been playing. So, we've gone over the stuff that we started playing with, but more recently, the games have gotten more complex and then yet more streamlined and a lot more interactive, and people are always coming up with great new ideas for games. So, Crystal, what is your first game?
One of my go-to games that kind of spans across multiple audiences, so from even younger kids to older adults, is King of Tokyo. Because who doesn't love being basically Godzilla smashing stuff up?
Yes.
Yes. So, for those who aren't aware, King of Tokyo is a dice rolling game in which you play some sort of monster in Tokyo, and the idea is that you want to either kill all the other monsters or you want to be the last one surviving in Tokyo. the way in which you do damage to your opponents or collect bonus items is through rolling dice with a Yahtzee style mechanic.
Yes.
Have you played King of Tokyo?
I have. I have played it several times, and I've played the more recent iteration called King of New York as well. I honestly think that I enjoy King of New York a little bit more, but
Yeah?
the games are very, very, very similar. So there is literally no point in owning both. So you kind of have to make the decision before you make the purchase.
I would definitely agree. I own King of New York and not King of Tokyo, and I really wish that I had a copy of King of Tokyo instead, because I find that the kind of extra layers of gameplay on King of New York is great for people who already know games and are ready for that extra level of complexity. But King of Tokyo, I find, suits non-gamers and gamers alike when there is a lower baseline to entry.
Yeah, I can understand that. I find King of New York to be, a little bit more involved, a little bit more interesting, and a few more options rather than just hoping that you roll the best.
Yeah,
So,
you have a lot more control.
Yeah, exactly. So I enjoy that a little bit more, in addition to the mechanics being slightly different, and the actual cards being different as well. There's a slightly different design to it, slightly.
Yeah.
But essentially, for all intents and purposes, they are the same game. Yeah, it's a great tactile game, I think. So the actual pieces are quite large. It gives you a sense that, you are significantly a large monster roaming and crushing and destroying parts of Tokyo/New York. And I love the fact that it's very hands-on. There's tons of dice to roll. You get to roll them several times, and it sort of encourages you to sort of, I don't know, get a bit hands-on with what you're doing rather than just, pouring lots of thought into it.
Yeah, it's definitely a kind of deal with the situation rather than stand back, plan out your move, and then go ahead and do your thing.
Yeah. So it's enjoyable in that way. The games aren't too long is another really good upside to it.
Yes, some people don't like the player elimination element, but the games are quick enough that no one's really sitting around for long waiting for something else to happen.
Yeah, it's unusual that someone got eliminated super early in the game without taking a ridiculous risk kind of thing to get themselves eliminated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a really great introduction game, I think.
So, Blue, what's your suggestion for a gateway game?
Well, my first game, unfortunately, I can't recommend from hours and hours of gameplay experience because I've literally only played it once. And I've already brought it up a little bit on the podcast, and I'm going to recommend it again. It's a game called Celestia that I got to play when I was down at CanCon. Now, Celestia is basically a push your luck style game, where the group is all mounted on an airship, which is flying to, an unknown destination a long way off. And each member of the group takes it in turns to be captain. And they also have a hand of cards, and those cards will let them get past certain challenges that will be presented by the game as you progress down this path. Now, the path gives you more points as you go further down it, but there's obviously more risk. It gets harder and harder as you go. And the game basically lets each person take it in turns being captain, and you want to get off the airship the moment before the captain crashes the ship. That is the plan, that is the ideal, and that's the best way to score points. So getting off on the first stop might actually be the best play if the captain doesn't actually have the card they need to get past the challenges they've rolled. So it's a really great game in terms of interactivity, and everyone's always involved and interested in what's actually happening in the game, which is really important for me as a game design mechanic, because I hate waiting for people.
Fair enough.
I'm a really impatient person, and the longer you have to wait and stalled between turns, the less sort of flow the game has for me. So, Crystal, what do you think about Celestia? Have you played it?
I did. I actually played it with you. at CanCon, I'm pretty
Really?
sure. Yeah.
I'm surprised. I would have forgotten something like that.
Yeah. Look, there's a lot of little push your luck kind of games out there at the moment, like Ink and Gold,
Zombie dice?
like there's a bunch of them.
Yep.
This one has kind of just that little extra bit, and those challenges and the ability for the captain to have some sort of control over whether or not there's a success or a loss, I guess, gives a bit more strategy and kind of thinking to it, rather than it just being a choice between, do I keep pushing or do I not keep pushing?
Yeah.
Because there's an element, yes, there's that element of risk, but there's also that kind of element of control as well.
Yeah, there's certain cards that you'll draw throughout the game that will give you let you do have some sort of impact on who's on the airship and stuff like that. You can kick people off, you can get away with accidentally crashing the ship or something like that. It's really interesting. I loved the artwork on it. I still distinctly remember it being a really beautiful game. And I'm really looking forward to getting a copy of that next time someone's in a store that sees a copy.
Okay.
Cool. All right, Krista, what's your next game?
My next game is Smash Up. So Smash Up is a card-based game in which you control two different factions. You mash their decks of cards together, so you get the benefits and disadvantages of each faction. And then depending on how many players you have in the game, there is players +1 locations for which you fight over territory for. So I think the joy of this game really comes from the mixing of factions. So you've got things like giant ants, bears, Frankenstein, robots, ninjas, and they're still releasing expansions for Smash Up. So
yeah, there's like more and more factions every other time I look at the game.
Yeah, so I think the last one, the most recent one they've released is It's All Your Fault, where the community actually voted which factions should be developed and included in the expansion, which I thought was pretty cool.
Okay.
I think it ended up as like dragons, sharks, and some other crazy stuff. So
cool.
Like there's so many combinations. Yeah. Have you played Smash Up?
I've only played it once, and it was actually a really interesting experience. I think I ended up playing dinosaurs and my memory is not as solid as it once was. Dinosaurs and pirates, I think.
Yep.
And my wife ended up choosing zombies, and I can't remember her second faction, but she chose, so zombies, my recollection of it anyway, is like a card drawing faction. So yeah, it'll let you burn through your deck more, which is cool. But her second faction was also a card drawing faction.
Oh.
So she got to draw so many cards. It was amazing. Every single turn she'd draw like an entirely new hand and play out a couple of things, but all her minions weren't that great, and she really had a poor time of it. And yeah, it was a shame, because I feel like the game could really use some, recommended combinations for starting games.
Oh, yeah, and I think possibly some of the later expansions recommend base set factions for which they'll work well with, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Or maybe I've just read that online. Usually when myself and my partner play, we grab a D20, 20-sided dice, and roll. And whatever number we get, we pick that number that spaces faction out of the box, and we play with those two random factions.
Cool.
So it also takes the kind of analysis paralysis out of, which faction should I play today?
Yeah, and which one counts as that one that you just chose? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it means we can just start playing. And then when we realize, oh, dear God, pirates do not go well with Miskatonic schoolgirls, then, you just play it out, and then you pick two new factions when you play again.
Okay, cool.
So this is a really good one for perhaps a slightly older audience. there is a lot of reading on some of these cards, and the interactions between cards can often get complex, especially when you're talking about factions that also have the additional layer of special effects on locations.
The ninjas jumped to mind immediately in terms of being complicated and jumping around and that sort of thing.
And the leprechauns as well that have a lot of abilities that play on top of both characters and locations. So then it starts to get confusing about which one should go where and what triggers when.
Yeah.
But it's a very fun game.
Yeah, definitely.
They've just recently brought a new expansion out, which is Smash Up Munchkin, which I haven't actually played, but it's apparently a mashup of Smash Up and Munchkin. So it's Smash Up, but with a Munchkin theme.
Okay. So there's a bunch of different decks still. It's sort of played in the Smash Up mechanics, or is it played?
Smash Up mechanics with a Munchkin theme. I haven't played it.
Yeah.
Actually, there was recently not recently, the Kickstarter was a while ago. We just actually got our products. A game called Epic PvP.
Yep.
Which is very similar to the Smash Up mechanics, except it's fantasy based. So instead of just picking two random factions, you pick a race and a class, and you mix those together, and you basically play a version of Smash Up where you are a dwarven rogue, for example. So if random factions of randomness don't suit you and you're really into fantasy, then Epic PvP could be an option for you.
Yeah, cool. It sounds interesting too.
It does. What's your second game, Blue?
My second game is a game that I've owned for a while, and I literally only started playing it this year. And it's a game called Samurai Spirit by Anton Bowser. So, Samurai Spirit is a co-op game, which is a somewhat unique breed within the board gaming sort of range. The most popular one that would spring to mind would be Pandemic. This is another example of an interesting co-op game where all the players are trying to work together to achieve the same goal. And in this case, it's to defend the village. And the village is under attack by bandits. And you and your fellow players must heroically defend the village at all costs. And the way you defend the village is basically by choosing a character. You have some special abilities on each of the characters, which is really cool. Makes them all unique. Mm-hmm. And you are dealing with bandits as they come at you. So you turn one over from the deck and you decide how you're going to deal with him. You can either, attack him directly, or you can use him to fill out one of your special slots, which needed to be filled by the end of each round. You play 3 rounds of this. Once you get all the way through the deck, then the game's over. Assuming that you've all lived through the actual experience. And assuming that the village isn't burned to the ground and that the village has some survivors. Unfortunately, I've not actually won this game yet.
What?
Playing on the normal difficulty and playing with the rules, now that I actually understand them, it's one little bit of a letdown in the game. The rules aren't that clear, unfortunately. I still have not actually successfully beaten the game on normal. There's not even a hard mode. It's interesting, and I think part of the thing that keeps bringing me back to it is the fact that it's co-op, so you don't really feel like competitive with the people that you're playing with. And I do my utmost not to, take the reins of everyone's characters and tell them what they need to do. Often I'll just say, "Oh, it's your choice." Like some of the decisions are tactical, but I would prefer everyone in the group to be involved by making decisions and stuff. And basically, there is an overarching tactic that you should be trying to adopt when you're playing the game, and I'm still yet to completely unravel that tactic, obviously having not actually successfully beaten it. So, that's my second game. It's a co-op game named Samurai Spirit. It costs about $40 Australian, which is really not that much. I've definitely got that amount of money out of it, but it can be a little bit frustrating when you keep losing again and again.
Yeah, I haven't actually played this one, but it sounds interesting. How long does it typically take to run through a game?
It's actually relatively short, depending on how quickly and how much attention the people you're playing with. Assuming that you played everything sort of on a relatively quick basis, it'd probably take about an hour.
Oh, okay, so it is a longer game.
Oh,
It's not really a filler game.
no. It's somewhere between filler and normal length.
Okay.
So the longest it will ever go is a normal length game, being,
Okay.
2.5 hours kind of thing. Whereas the shortened version of it, like realistically, you could easily knock a game of this over in half an hour.
Okay. All right. So it's a substantial game.
Yeah. There's a lot to it. There's like Anton Bowser's other game, Seven Wonders. It's very friendly for different numbers of people. So you can play it with just 2. You can play it with 7 people. So it's very encompassing for that. And it keeps everyone involved and gives everyone a common goal, which is great. I love interesting co-op games and co-op mechanics. It's really difficult to do this well from a design perspective. So yeah, it's a cool game.
I'll have to add it to my list of games to play, I think.
Yeah, excellent.
It looks quite pretty as well.
Yeah, it's definitely. There's another really cool thing if you like that sort of thing and you want to make it to appeal to a younger audience. Your samurai that you start with, after they've taken 2 wounds, they turn into furry versions of themselves. So there's a bear and there's a tiger and there's a monkey and stuff like that. It's really cool. The artwork is really, really awesomely done, and your character then gets more powerful as well. And I think that's actually probably one of the keys to the game is making sure you hit that furry form before you go into that last round.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Very cool. Strongly recommended.
Excellent.
All right. What's your next game, Crystal?
My next game, and probably the last game for this episode, is a much longer game and a much deeper game, and that's Lords of Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep is based on the Dungeons and Dragons franchise and storyline, and it's very much a Euro game. But in saying that, it's one of the lighter Euro games, I guess. So you play a hidden role, a hidden lord, which gives you a goal for the game where you will receive extra points for doing a particular thing within the game. So once you get into the game, you basically, depending on which lord you get, but typically you're trying to complete quests by using workers to place on the board to get selected resources in order to complete those quests.
Yeah.
And you get points for each quest you complete, no matter what kind of quest it is. But depending on your lord, you may get bonus points for certain types of quests. There's also been 2 expansions, Scoundrels of Skullport and, well, it's 1 expansion, but it's got 2 parts, which has further deepened the game with some additional mechanics.
Yeah.
I really, really like this game, so much so that I bought it for my iPad. It is my go-to game when I know I'm going to be sitting for a while and I want to get into something a little bit deeper than, the Candy Crush Match 3 style of game.
Yeah.
Have you played Lords of Waterdeep?
I have. I've played it quite a while ago now. I picked up a copy after I watched it played on Tabletop, I believe.
Yep.
And it looked really cool, and it took forever for me to actually get my copy. There was basically a massive shipping malfunction, and the company who did it has now gone bust. So,
oh, ouch.
But at least I got my copy eventually, and
excellent.
It was really interesting, and I liked playing it, even though I don't normally lean towards Euro games that much. And I really like the hidden roles mechanic. So it's a natural sort of progression for a game like Discworld for me, where the actual role that each character is playing is significant in how you play the game.
Yeah.
And I also like the premise as well, the whole premise of, collecting adventurers and sending them off to their doom and stuff like that. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I bought it for that reason. I unfortunately has fallen a little bit by the wayside of late as my available gaming time has shrunk. But I still did enjoy playing it, and I do have my copy on the shelf along with Scoundrels of Skullport.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I think I've played this game far less physically than I have on my tablet device.
Yep.
I would say, though, that this is better suited for 4 players rather than 5, especially if you're playing with players who haven't played before.
Yep.
Because turns can take a very long time. And this, being a Euro game, like many others, suffers when one or more players suffers from analysis paralysis.
Yes.
Which is where they can't really make a decision swiftly about what they want to do with their turn.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that occasionally. Usually there'll be at least 1 or 2 turns within a game like this where I stall for like minutes and minutes and minutes while everyone's just waiting for me to take my turn. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It's really funny. Lords of Waterdeep, perfectly fine. But another Euro game where you place workers in a kind of a similar way is Kingsburg. I have the worst AP in that game. Yep. It is not funny. My partner doesn't like when I pick that game sometimes because he knows that it's going to come with some downtime while I try and make a decision.
Yep. I know what you mean. Yeah. There's so many games that I look back on and think I invest way too much thought in some of these actual turns, but
yeah.
And then never seem to make the right decision anyway. So.
Look, sometimes I make the right decision. I'm not going to say all the time.
Yeah. I was going to ask, with the iOS version, is it single player only or is there multiplayer to it?
You can play multiplayer online.
Yep.
I don't think it has a pass and play option, but because generally I'm in a waiting area with not necessarily an internet connection, I typically just play against the AI.
Yep.
With 4 players, and it plays just great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I will have to have a look at that when I next have the opportunity. Actually, I can get it from my phone. Fantastic.
Oh, so it's really good on my tablet.
Yep.
But it is quite a large board, so I would imagine on your phone you'd be doing a lot of scrolling down and around the board.
Okay, sure.
Whereas on the tablet you can see most of the board.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of buildings being built in that particular game, you have to scroll through them.
Yeah.
But generally you can get a whole view of the board, which I haven't seen it on a mobile device, but I can imagine that might be one of the criticisms of perhaps how they've implemented it.
Okay. I've got a 6S Plus, which is cool. So it's definitely the most large one that I could actually obtain.
Excellent.
Maybe it'll be enough. Who knows? All right. So the last game that I wanted to discuss today was a game called Suburbia. Now, I picked up a copy of this along with Lords of Waterdeep, now that I think about it. So, rather ironically, it's a game by Ted Alspach, and it's a game about designing a city. You're essentially each in control of a borough or a council area if you're from Australia, and you're basically zoning the area out to different, I don't know, you're literally zoning out the area so that you've got industrial premises, you've got commercial premises, and you've got residential premises. And all the different tiles that come into the game interact in a certain way, be it they don't like being next to an industrial area, or they do like being next to other industrial areas, or it'll get worse based on how many restaurants you're competing with and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting hex building game, and there's also some really cool mechanics that go along with it. So basically, one player each turn will take the role of designating how much each tile on that is available will cost. So
Yep.
I guess you could kind of call it the one person cut, the other person choose mechanic.
Yep.
I remember my parents always used to do that with my brother and I when we had like, a piece of cake to choose from or to eat together. And they go, okay, one person cut, the other person choose. And it's in the best interest of the person cutting to cut as carefully 50% of the cake as humanly possible because they don't actually get to choose which piece they're going to get. So, yeah, so the cut and choose mechanic, as I've just dubbed it, basically determines that one player can choose how much everything's going to cost, but they can't make their favorite thing the cheapest because other people will probably take that if it's really good for them or other people. So it's really interesting in that way. It's very similar to a game called Castles of Mad King Ludwig. There's a lot of crossover between these two games, and they both have their pluses and minuses. So this one is sort of hex-based. It's not very, tactile. And for those of you with OCD, a little bit like myself, the hexes fit neatly together, and it looks like you've got a really pretty end product. You definitely do not get that in Castles of Mad King Ludwig. You'll have hallways going all over the place and doors that aren't properly closed in and stuff like that. It can be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
So, this is a really cool game. Have you played it at all, Crystal?
I've played Suburbia and I've played Castles of Mad King Ludwig, and they are quite similar in that you're building a thing, and depending on your previous moves, that might trigger other things to happen. I want to say with Suburbia, I find it really, really thematic in that a lot of the tiles you can get have like a very real theme impact, if that makes sense. So, for example, if you build a river right next to a hotel, that's going to be great because your hotel's going to have great views of the river. But if you put a dump site next to a restaurant, well, that's not really going to fly. No one's going to like to eat at that restaurant when it's right next to a dumpster.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of tile interaction in this game.
Oh, tons of tile interaction, but it's very thematic and it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although in saying that, so the hexes, I love a good hex game, but I want to say with Castles of Mad King Ludwig is that their tiles are so much prettier.
That is true. The game, the Mad King Ludwig has a lot of thematic strength to it as well, and really, really enjoyed that even from that perspective. And you creating something, you're not just sort of laying hexes down next to one another.
Yeah, you do get that sense of achievement and accomplishment at the end of both games. The only thing I find with Castles of Mad King Ludwig is that I feel like it ends before I really get going.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Like it should go on for another, I don't know, 5 or 6 turns or something like that, so I can finish the castle.
Yeah.
But invariably your castle isn't finished by the time.
Yeah, like it's 5 weird-ass rooms connected to each other, and that's not a castle. Come on, 5 rooms is not a castle. Like 20 rooms is a castle.
Yeah.
The other thing about Suburbia is it also has an iOS tablet app for which I play frequently.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So because Suburbia has a lot of triggers, playing it on the app, that's all taken care of for you, and you don't miss, I forgot to take that income, or I forgot to actually downgrade my population. Like, all that's done on the app for you.
Yeah.
Which is really great and makes you a really lazy player when you go to play it for real.
Yeah, I find
face to
myself
face.
always taking the role of the banker in this game and constantly calculating what's happening to everyone on the board and what the different tile interactions are and stuff like that for people. Yeah.
And undoubtedly you missed one trigger where you forgot to collect 2 coins from the bank.
Yeah, exactly. You'd never do it flawlessly without having some sort of computer interaction or something.
Yeah. The other good thing about the Suburbia app is it does have a campaign mode. Where there's little challenge, you get a map of, I believe, the US, and each kind of city has different thematic challenge. So for, I want to say in Ohio or Las Vegas, they've got a convention-based one where you have to finish the game with a certain population.
Yep.
And then, there's some really thematic challenges, which are very cute.
Cool.
And lots of fun.
Again, I will have to have a look and check it out.
Yeah.
Those are really good options, I think, for like as far as the iOS version goes. Like they only are usually like $10 tops.
Yeah.
Versus, you're talking about $60 to $80 for these games.
Yeah, it's definitely a great way to get a taste of the game if you're not sure if you want to invest $60 to $70 or up to $100.
Yeah. With expansions and stuff.
Yeah. And usually, like, I tend to base my buying decisions a lot on user reviews and YouTube videos of the physical product. I wouldn't typically buy an app, but there are a couple of apps I do have where I've bought the app over the physical product because I know that it's a game I'm not going to be able to get to the table, simply because most of the gaming I do now is two-player gaming, or the maybe once a month, if I'm lucky, I'll get to play something on a bigger scale.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, what other games were it that you had played on iOS or app in preference?
So Ticket to Ride is really well implemented on iOS.
Yep.
Sorry, Android users, I have an Android phone, but typically I play board games that have been ported to apps on my tablet, simply because there's more screen real estate. But Android do have access to most of the board games that I have on the iOS, so there shouldn't be too much disconnect between what you're hearing and the experience you have on an Android device. So Ticket to Ride, that's a pretty good one and has online play options.
Yep.
They also have the expansions available through the same application, so that you can choose between your India, your Nordic countries, etc., and so forth.
Cool.
Splendor is also one I play when I want a quicker game.
Yep.
So when I know I'm not going to be waiting long. And if I don't really want to do much thinking, I have Quarriors.
Yep.
Which is a dice rolling game.
Cool.
Other ones I've played is Small World 2.
Yep.
I've got Le Havre sitting there, but I haven't played it because I haven't played it physically. So I haven't gone through the tutorial to play it.
Yeah.
Agricola is also on my tablet, and I think I must have got it on sale day because I'm not a super huge Agricola fan.
Okay.
But it's there.
Yeah.
So I got to keep my options open.
Yeah. You got to have something new ready to go.
Exactly. I've also got things like Star Realms and Ascension, Boss Monster, Coup. I don't think I've really played Coup on here like at all, because to me that's very much built around the social experience of the game, and playing that with an AI just is, I imagine, going to be pretty lame.
Yeah, I was going to say the only downside I can see to playing a lot of these in iOS form is the fact that some of these games, the most enjoyable aspects to it are just having other people to play it with and to share the experience with.
Oh, yeah, the app is no replacement for that interaction. And I still very much miss gaming, despite I have many games available to me on a tablet.
Yeah.
Because it's for me very much about the social experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, speaking of social experiences.
Yeah, so we'd like to talk about Looking for Gamers. So the organisers of Looking for Gamers have kindly offered us some tickets to give away. So here's how you get free tickets. You need to follow us at WellPlayedAU on Twitter. Now, once you've started following us, you'll be able to see our tweets. And by the time you hear this, we should have tweeted a round of code names and a clue. What you need to do is tweet back to us what you think the solution to that clue is. And we are going to give away 2 double passes. I'm hoping to 2 people who guess correctly. If no one guesses correctly, we'll take the person most correct. If no one is even close, then anyone who enters will be in with a chance to win it.
Yep.
You're in with a chance to win it anyway, but if less get it right, then there's more opportunity for more people to win.
That's true. It's certainly not an easy round of code names, put it that way.
It most certainly is not.
So
We like a challenge.
Yep. It's going to be definitely interesting, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone and getting some new followers from
So make sure at Well Played AU you have to follow us, otherwise you won't see it and we may not see your response. So follow us and there'll likely be a hashtag.
Fantastic. So what exactly are we competing for here? So the double passes are for Looking for Gamers.
Looking for Gamers. So we discussed Looking for Gamers last week. It's a convention that is an offshoot from the Toy and Game Expo. Basically, everything to do with board gaming, wargaming, and role playing. 2 days out in Sydney. I reckon it's going to be a great time.
Yes, we will be there. It will be exciting. We'll be doing some commentary and casting and interviews and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you get to meet us if nothing else. Surely that's valuable.
That totally is. And if you'd like to play a game with us and you want to book in some time just for you, then tweet us or email us.
Absolutely. We're all super keen gamers, and hey, if there's we're going to be all 5 of us there, so we can split ourselves between multiple games, which is fun.
We can.
All right. Even if you want us to teach you something, I'm more than happy to show people how to play different games and stuff that we've spoken about. So
totally keen.
Fantastic.
So thanks for joining us this week. We hope you've enjoyed yourselves as much as we have. You can catch us on Twitter at WellPlayedAU. You can also send us questions, comments, abuse, or lovely writings of poetry to wellplayedau@gmail.com. And if you like us, I'd really love it if you left us a review on iTunes, or you can like us or subscribe to us on YouTube.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.